We thank you most especially for the gift of life. We thank you for good health. We thank you for the care that you've taken upon each one of us. Heavenly Father, we also thank you for this webinar that we are starting. We pray that, Lord, as we start, you will guide us. You will also enable us, oh God, to be able to learn much more on animal nutrition so that we can be able to practice dairy farming, oh God, with knowledge so that we can be profitable to us and also to our country, Kenya. Lord, as we start, we pray that you start with us and end with us. And we also pray that, Lord, those who would like to join, you may help them, my Father, to join this webinar so that we can start together. For we pray, believing and trusting in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Paris, for that short prayer. And guys, before we continue, this is a training, and actually what we do as KAGRC, we ensure that our farmers actually get the information. We are working towards improving productivity and towards the fourth agenda of food security in Kenya. So thank you so much, and maybe I would like Chebe to give us a short video as we welcome our panelists, which is John Kibe from KLBA. Chebe.
Thank you, Regina.
The livestock sector plays an important role in the Kenya economy. Livestock production provides employment, ensures wealth creation in addition to food and nutrition security. The Kenya Animal Genetic Resources Centre, formerly Central Artificial Insemination Station, was established through a legal notice number 110 of September 2011 as a successor of Central Artificial Insemination Station that was established in 1946. The organisation was established with the objective of controlling breeding diseases and genetic improvement of the national livestock population. The centre was started with 4 bulls of Guernsey and Jersey breeds. Other breeds were later introduced in the 1970s. Currently, the centre produces semen from Friesian, Ayrshire, Guernsey, Jersey, Sahiwal, Boran breeds as well as Magic 50. The number of bulls per breed is demand-driven by the farmers. Other breeds whose semen is available include Charolais, Simmental and Hereford. The annual semen production approximates at 1.1 million doses. Over the years, the organisation has grown and transformed into a full-fledged state corporation with an expanded mandate through the legal notice number 110 of September 2011. The Kenya Animal Genetic Resources Centre produces, preserves, and conserves animal genetic material, semen, embryo, tissues and live animals, while rearing breeding sires for the provision of high-quality disease-free semen for national and export market. The Kenya Animal Genetic Resources Centre is a one-stop shop for breeding solutions through sale of semen, liquid nitrogen, artificial insemination equipment, and accessories at competitive prices. The centre provides services such as on-farm semen collection and storage, testing of liquid nitrogen containers, conducting refresher trainings on safe handling of semen, liquid nitrogen, and artificial insemination equipment. Furthermore, the centre disseminates extension messages through farmer field days, Agricultural Society of Kenya shows, exhibitions, print and electronic media, as well as the Kenya Animal Genetic Resources Centre social media platforms. The centre has devolved its products and services to the farming communities through its sub-centres in Kutus, Kirinyaga County, Sotik Bomet County, Eldoret Uasin Gishu County, Shuka Tharaka Nithi, and Nyahururu Nyandarua County. The Kenya Animal Genetic Resources Centre has also appointed distribution agents countrywide in addition to collaborating with counties in availing its products and services. The Kenya Animal Genetic Resources Centre has been keen on tapping into the export market for its products, mainly the Boran and Sahiwal breeds. The centre has previously exported to Botswana, Uganda, Mali, Zimbabwe and Burkina Faso. Recently, the Kenya Animal Genetic Resources Centre delivered 2,500 doses of Sahiwal semen to Rwanda, and in the next few weeks 4,000 doses of assorted breeds will be exported to Burundi. In addition to the wide range of products and services, the centre targets to distribute embryos, dairy goat semen, as well as diversify into poultry and pig multiplication projects. The centre remains committed to providing timely, effective and efficient services. The Kenya Animal Genetic Resources Centre for superior animal genetics, improved livestock productivity and profitable farming enterprises. For more information, contact us through 07 2889967 or 0786204400. You can also write to us through info@kagrc.go.ke.
Okay, thank you, Chabet, for that highlight on KAGRC. And I believe our viewers and our panelists are able to get an insight of how KAGRC actually works and its agenda towards the improvement of our dairy and also beef animals, and how our distribution is being concentrated equally in our national Kenya. Maybe I'll just want to give some highlight on how KAGRC actually plays a critical role in economic through provision of high quality disease-free germplasm to livestock producers. So KAGRC is a state corporation, and actually, if we concerning that, we see that our animal production contributes about 5.5% of our Kenyan GDP and accounts actually for 22% of the country's agricultural TBD, of which 40% of the farm gate value of agricultural commodities actually is being offered in our nation. So giving highlight on that, I would like to introduce our panelists. Maybe you can give, actually, if we are present, introduce yourself and tell us your names from KAGRC and also from KLBA. Welcome, panelists. Hello. Paris.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay.
Kindly introduce yourself.
Okay. Thank you, Regina. And thank you also participants for joining us today for this webinar on animal nutrition. My name is Paris Osibori. I'm the Marketing Officer, Kenya Animal Genetic Resources Center. I won't make much of the remarks because from the clip that has been played, you know what KAGRC does and where we are. Just to wish you all the best during this webinar series. I wish that we'll be able to get as much knowledge as possible so that we can be able to raise our livestock well. We know that animal nutrition plays an important role in productivity, and if our animals are not well fed, it can actually lead to infertility and low milk production. But I know that will be talked in more detail by our facilitator. Otherwise, thank you so much and welcome to this webinar. And thank you, KLBA, for joining us in this webinar series. Thank you.
Thank you. Sabet, kindly.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Lillian Chebet. I'm the Digital Marketing Officer at KAGRC. I just wanted to thank you all for taking this opportunity to join in in this webinar. I would also like to remind you that it is a CPD training. So please remember to send in your KVA registration numbers through the chat feature or the Q&A feature. Also, please note that you will be required to sit through the whole training for you to gain the points. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chebet. Let me welcome our facilitators team from KLBA. You can see Joseph Diambo. Welcome.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
This is Joseph Odhiambo. Karibuni sana.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And our speaker for today, we are going to have John Kibe. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Okay, thank you so much. We are going to proceed, and before we proceed by our speaker, I would like to give you that KAGRC actually is continuing with its effort to make sure that our farmers there can improve their productivity, and hence we can improve our livelihood. So actually, we understand that for productivity, we must have the genetic part of it, the contribution genetic part of it, and also which KAGRC plays fully on that, and also the management system. As we know, productivity is equals to phenotype plus the genotype, which is the productivity and of it. So today we are going to have a session which is very important, critical in contribution towards our productivity, because actually we can't realize the production when we master on the genetic part of it, but also in the management. And we are having our partner today to give us, to enlighten our farmers on nutrition. So welcome our speaker.
Thank you so much. If you may please allow for screen sharing.
Okay.
Mr. John Kibe, please proceed.
Yes, so thank you so much. I'm delighted to be in this. I think it's season 2 for me. I'm delighted to be part of this team. My names are John Kibe. I work for the State Department of Livestock, and specifically at the Livestock Recording Center here in Nakuru. It's important to state that you forgive me, I have a bit of a flu because of the cold, but I hope we'll tutaendelea vizuri. We work very closely with them. Sorry?
We are getting you, don't you worry.
Okay.
Sorry
Thank
for
you.
the cold.
Thank you, thank you. We work very closely with the KLBA. We have very good synergy collaboration. So being part of this webinar is important and plays a part in our roles and duties that we do for farmers. Secondly, is to say that I'm a proud animal scientist by training and practice, and matters nutrition. It's like I would liken them to what the Bible says with regards to the wife of your youth. I worked in the feed industry as a very young professional, so I have a lot of love and passion for that. Then thirdly, as you all realize, is a very, very broad subject, and then thinking about it and looking at what probably would be would be really important is like look for a pin in a haystack, but we try to do and be able to do justice to the subject. So I think starting is a blow it there. An introduction is we know that nutrition is a process by which we are able to process, to present, and also utilize. We present nutrients, we present food to the animal. The process of utilizing that nutrient by the living cells, and then also the aspect of us making sure that we eliminate the wastes, what the animal doesn't utilize or what the animal doesn't find use of is excreted out of the body. And then it can also be said that it helps us to be able to really look at the value, the feed value, and the feeding. This is important in that we're looking at the quality, what is the composition of a feed material, then and in what form or presentation we give it to the animals. And can also be a process where we absorption and utilization of the substances as we have outlined there before. There's a French chemist, Antonio, you forgive my French, Lavoisier. Why I find this important is that we realize, for those of us who really hate chemistry, we realize that nutrition has a very huge impact with chemistry. For us to be able to do evaluation, we must now be able to look at the chemical value of the feeds, and he came up with a statement there that is a chemical process. Then this process now involves the study of nutrition involves us. First is identification of the individual nutrients that are required by the animal for the three major functions that we are aware of maintenance, growth, and production. It will also help us to be able to determine the interrelationships among the nutrients and the animal body. How are the animals able to be able to kind of be able to get the nutrients from a particular amount of feed. Then thirdly, there it helps us it involves the evaluation of the quantitative requirements of the animals for specific nutrients for various functions. We want to look at the reasons, the purpose that an animal is being reared for. We want to really look at what nutrients would it require to be able to give us the necessary products that we desire. In this regard, it would then now be inferred that it will help us be able to get what are the nutrients required by the animal's body. Then, what then will be the role or function of each of these nutrients in the animal? Then also, what is the contribution of the various feeds in terms of their known nutrients? We know each and every feed resource has a major nutrient in it. We want to know what will be its contribution, and this is to say what nutrient does in each specific feed provided. Then also it helps us answer the question that what is the fate of the nutrient to the animal's body? What happens the moment that feed is digested by the animal? And fourth there is that what is the efficiency of conversion? This becomes important, especially when we're talking of beef animals and then animals where meat animals, so to say. You require an animal that is highly efficient, and you also require a feed product that is able to be efficiently utilized by the animals. And this now conversion is in terms of maybe meat or milk or eggs and such. Then what are the specific nutrient requirements of the various animals for the various physiological activities? we understand the animal has various bodily functions. So we want nutrition helps us now to be able to tell the specific nutrient requirement that each of them would require. There is a diagram there. Hopefully it is clear. This is an interrelationship of what I think is Madam Chebet said there before, the interaction between what we say the basic rule of genetics, that the performance is an interaction between the genetics and environment. So this kind of now tries to show us this. And when training farmers, we really want to tell them that the cow is like a factory. And in each and every factory, you need an inlet and an outlet. So in this factory of ours, the animal, we need now the raw materials here is both the quality and the quantity. Those two are very important. That we want to give the right quantities, but also the right quality in terms of the nutrients availability in the feed. Then now getting now to the animal itself, now we look at the genetic capacity. This is in terms of the genetic makeup. In terms of now digestion, we are looking at the GIT. Then we're also looking at now in section how that animal is comfortable in terms of the animal health, issues of housing, and such. Then if we are able to marry those two things, then we can be assured that we're going to get a good product. And a good product here is not only in terms of volume, but also in terms of the quality, in terms of the milk components that we find from that animal. A bit of the terms here, we are not in a nutrition 101 class, but I think this would help us now to really understand the terminologies that we find most commonly in this subject. And a feed, as you understand, in animals, we talk of feed, is any foodstuff that is you grow it or produced in a factory or even developed. I think when we talk of developed, people have a lot of, there's a lot of ethics with regards to what we can be able to develop. And this is for the purpose of why we are doing all this. The three things we are doing there is to be able to provide the animal with the nutrients that is required for maintaining the body of the animal, and also for supporting the production of the products that we're targeting, milk, eggs, meat, and many others. And what is a nutrient? Nutrients are small molecules that play a defined metabolic role. The key word there is defined, that they have a specific role that they are going to play in the animal, and they are very essential for the proper functioning of the animal organism. And this might also refer to the specific chemical elements. For example, the minerals we have, iron, calcium, zinc, and many more, or would also refer to the chemical compound. And chemical compound here, meaning now we have is a composition that you cannot find it as separate. This is where now you have examples of the glucose, the vitamins, or the methionine that we have in the proteins. Then dropping down to now the major nutrients that we have that we are aware of, I feel is fundamentally to list them like that, because there are many people out there who wouldn't agree with the inclusion of what are there, but it becomes very important. So the major categories, we divide nutrients in 6 categories, and they are as listed there: water, carbohydrates, proteins, fats and lipids. As you know, fats and lipids are the major group of carbohydrates, but we'll see they are superior in some aspects. Then you have the vitamins that are broken down into A up to K. Then you have now the minerals, which are the ash, which in some literature you would find it being referred to the ash. Then going down is now where you have 2 important, very important phrases there, essential and non-essential nutrients. So essential nutrients, these are nutrients that are synthesized in very small amounts. And this synthesis now happens in the animal body. And that means now that since they cannot be synthesized in the animal body, they must be provided in the diet. That we must make sure that within the diet we provide for them, since the animal is not able to in quotes, manufacture them in itself. Then you have non-essential nutrients. These are nutrients that are synthesized in the body if there is a deficiency. If you have a deficiency of some sort, the animal can in a way be able to really, once triggered, once probably there is a huge deficiency, the animal can be able to provide for such. And this means that there is no need, there can be no need to supply in the diet. And then this is where now it comes to issues of profitability. If we supply what the animal can be able to manufacture, that adds to the cost. So if we have those non-essential nutrients, we can be in a way be able to let the animal be able to kind of be able to synthesize. Then, as we are aware, that the animal also requires a balanced diet. And a balanced diet would provide all the essential nutrients in proportions that are required. And this is the right proportions that are required for maximum performance of the animal function. And as we have said there previously, the main functions of the animal, main functions of the animal's body would be production, growth, which we broadly talk of maintenance and production. Another crux of the matter, this is where now we have a lot of confusion, especially with our farmers, with regard to what is dry matter. And dry matter is a proportion of the feed that remains after all the water has been removed. And this can only be achieved in a laboratory environment where you dry it at between 100 degrees centigrade. So this implies that at the farm level, it might not be practical for you to be able to achieve 100% DM. And the importance of DM is that it's the material that carries the other categories of the nutrients. This is where the nutrients we enumerated there before are found in. So this now becomes important in that, because this is where if you were talking, for example, if you were to fananisha with a bomb, this is where now the real explosive is. So this now becomes important in that we really need to understand in each and every feed the amount of feed material, the amount of DM that we can find, and that would consequently be able to lead us to a conclusion of the amount of nutrients that we get in a particular amount of feed. As I've said, there is also important in the storage of the feed. And this means also that in terms of storage, and this is when our post-harvest, as we know, when we have too high moisture, you interfere with feed storage, that it might lead to too much moisture would lead to molds and then the destruction of the feed material. And a good example is for maize, where, as we know, we require 13% moisture content. If it goes up there, we would have cases of aflatoxin being prevalent. It's of significance is that it also affects the feed intake of the animal. That is, the higher the dry matter of the feed, the lower the feed intake. If the feed is too dry, then you realize that there can be instances where the animal might not be able to really be able to eat that feed. And as we know, if the animal is not able to feed in the right quantities, that would mean that the amount of production, the amount of produce we get at the end of the day will be slightly affected. Then of importance is the relationship between now animal health and nutrition, and then this can easily be seen in terms of efficiency. And as we know, some certain elements of nutrients, when they are deficient, they will lead to certain diseases. Then also, as we know, excesses. I think these were now, as we see in the next slide, in terms of cost of production, we might be thinking we are giving, we are helping the animal by providing excess, but we are in a way affecting the animal in terms of metabolic diseases. Then also some elements also interfere with the uptake or utilization of other elements. That is to mean, when you have more of one, you can have an issue of utilization of the other. Then, as you know, some feed materials can have toxic compounds, and these toxic compounds, when ingested and then they're fed to by the animal, can cause havoc inside the animal's body. Then, of importance is the bottom line is that there is some interaction between nutrition and diseases. That is, bad health can prevent feeding. That is, an animal that is sick would not be able to feed well, and this is what, in terms of health, is anorexia. That is the lack of appetite. Then also, in terms of now disease recovery, because once the animal is sick, in the recovery, a good nutrition would be essential in ensuring that the animal is able to recover and then repair those damaged organs or cells caused by the disease. Then this is what I've referred to there previously, that some literature talk of 70%, over 70% of the total production is a result of feeding. If you study on dairy, you will find some material talking of 60 to 80%. So this means that if we are able to reduce on the amount we spend on the feeds, that would really increase the profitability, the profit margin that the farmer is able to get to go up. And as we've said, wasteful or poor feeding can turn a profit into a loss. And this also means that if the farmer are able to give very careful thought to feeding, they will have a greatest chance of improving their profits. I think these were now somehow I have radical views that instead of us increasing the buying price of products, we can easily do it by making sure that our farmers are able to produce each and every product at a cheaper price, by making sure that they reduce the cost of the feed. And this is true. The last statement there is true, that is the most expensive item in the production process. So we'll look at each of these nutrients in very brief ways. We will not be able to cover all of them in detail. We'll just rush through, because also I think we might not have enough time. So let's look at, we'll not look at the functions of water, which we know the importance of water in terms of the biological processes and also in production. Let's look at what would happen in case there is deprivation. We will have loss or reduction in production. Can even reduce to the bare minimum, or you have quite a huge reduction. Then there is also going to be what they say in human medicine, muscle wasting. Is going to be reduction in weight due to hydration. Then also there is not going to be good feed intake. The animals will not be able to eat as required because of the lack of water. And as we can see there is that for cattle and other animals, there is a restriction of DEM intake when there is not enough or adequate water for them to be able to consume. Then when you have reduced water intake, or you have reduced, sorry for that, you have reduced amount of water in the animal, and that means consequently that you're going to have reduced urine volume, and this increases iron concentration in the urine, and then now this means that you're interfering. We know the role that minerals play in terms of metabolism and such. So we do not want to have a situation where you have a lot of iron or a lot of ions in the urine. Dehydration would lead to an increase in the pulse rate. The heart would beat faster. It will also lead to an increase in body temperature. To some extent, term it as fever. And this the explanation to the increase in body temperature is that water, as we know, plays a big part in it. It is a huge composition of the blood. So a reduction in the blood would consequently mean that there will be an increase in the viscosity. That is, the blood will become more thicker, and thus would lead to a resistance to flow. That the flow of blood within the vessels will go down, and that means that the heat cannot be removed from the body as fast as possible. That, I think, it should be not fast, number one, as quick as possible, as we would want the heat to be dissipated out of the animal. This is just a reminder where we know the sources are. We have the water that we provide, free drinking water, we have the bound water, and this is what we say is contained in the feeds. And as we know, large pasture, which is the younger pasture, have a lot of water in them, as opposed to those older plants. Then you have the metabolic water, and this is generated during the oxidation of hydrogen containing organic nutrients. This is a good example in what the camels are able to do during the dry season. And that's a graphic, a table there on the average water consumption that each and every animal requires. And this is important now for planning. We realize that due to climate change, and we now have peri-urban farming, this would guide the farmer in terms of knowing that if I keep this number of animals, this is the amount of water I would need to make sure that I either have a reservoir or I'm able to provide for the animal. Then coming down now to dairy, the table there tries to put to us the amount of water that an animal requires. And as we can see there, for the calves and the heifers, they require about 15 liters maximum, and about for the 40 liters. Then for milking cows, this is in terms of the production per day. The higher the production, the higher the amount of water that's required. And this is significant in that, as we know, 87 on average, 87% of milk is water. So that becomes fundamental in us being able to make sure that we provide for that amount of water for the respective production. What then would affect the intake? Maybe if you may, madam, you would let me have a bit of break. I a bit of makamasi kidogo in a minute, please, if you may. In 1 minute.
Okay, as we wait, we give our facilitator 1 minute. I hope our viewers, I can see our viewers are requesting for the notes, and I want to assure you that the notes will be shared through our emails, and I think Chebet will confirm that. And also, in case of any question, our viewers, please, for those who are not able to access, you can or you can ask questions. You can use the features, the chat features. Okay. I don't know if our facilitator is back. Okay, I think it's still on hold. We request also our viewers, because this is a CPD point, please kindly send your KBB registration number so that we'll be allotted with the CBD points.
Thank you. I'm back.
Oh, welcome.
Sorry for that. Factors, and this I find is important in terms of for us knowing when we would be able to alter or increase the amount of water the animal would require is the physiological state of the individual. For example, when it is a high milker or it is in milk, we need to provide enough water. Then the physical activity and lactation state. So if an animal is in semi-zero or in extensive system, that would require the amount of water would be increased. Then, as we said there previously, the higher the DM intake, the higher the water intake that would be required. Then also, the higher the protein diet, the higher the protein in the diet, the higher the amount of water requirements. Then also, another good thing is here the frequency of watering. And this is where now we find that animals that have free access to water tend to consume more within a given time period than those that are watered less frequent. And this now tries to really impress on the farmers to make sure that we are able to make sure that the animals have water, as you say, ad lib with them, so that they are able to consume whenever they like. Then if the water is too cold, below the ambient temperature, then the animal will not be able to consume as much. Then when the temperatures are hot, when it is very hot outside there, or when there is high temperature, means we have low humidity, the animal requires more. So that means during such instances, we need to provide for more. Then when you have cases of saline water, we know the areas in this country that the water is saline. So for you to be able to excrete the amount of the excessive salt in the water, the animal requires provision for more water to be able to function properly. That's just about water. You realize I said we're rushing because of time, and then also we're trying to kind of look at the most appropriate points to highlight. And I think if we don't cover as much as the audience might require, probably would have a second presentation later to really do a lot of that. And let's very quickly rush into carbohydrates. And as we know, they are the major source of energy in our diet, and they will constitute between 50 and 80% of the DM in the forages and in grains. And there are three major types that we find in our feeds. That are the sugars, starch, and the fiber. Let's look at each of them briefly. The sugars, as we know, they are soluble in water, and thus they are readily available to the animal. And you can find this one in a good example is in molasses, sugar beets, or cane. Then you have the starch, and these are the main form of carbohydrate that is stored in plants. Most of the plants have starch, and it is the main component of cereal grains and root tubers. Cereal grains, the maize, the sorghum, the rice, they have a lot of starch in them, and also the root tubers that we have, the sweet potatoes and the potatoes themselves. And the fiber, and then this one is the most controversial, so to say. It is forming the structural part of the plants, and it is in very large quantities in roughages, and can only be broken down microorganisms in the rumen. This now becomes fundamental in terms of realizing that the best animal that would be able to break down the fiber are the ruminants. And of importance there is that research has shown that there is a direct correlation between the amount of fat in the diet and the amount of fat. But here is a caveat I give to farmers is that for you to be able to provide for that balance, because as you know, fat is less digestible. So if you increase the fiber, if you increase the CF part in any feed, in the feed that you give, so that means because you're reducing on the digestibility, that means you might in a way affect the milk production. So there should be a balance there. Make sure that you don't affect the digestibility of the amount of feed that you give to the animal. But again, it's also fundamentally important that, and this is why I sympathize with farmers, that especially for the high milkers, the fresh ones that we have, that the farmer takes the milk to the market, then the market thinks that the milk is adulterated because the fat is so down, and we say you can deal with it with the nutrition bit or with the breeding bit where you have bulls that are able to up the BF output that you can get. And we find the fiber mostly in the grasses, in the fodder crops, and now in the crop residues. I think crop residues now is important. Were it not that God is gracious to us that we have rain in December. Were it not that God is gracious to. Sorry about that. These were now in Western Masakari. About that. These were now in Western Masakari. Please help us take care of that echo. We are in a place because now we don't have enough feed. These were now crop residues. What farmers have harvested. This is the time now that it become very, very important. And we might form now the basal feed for most of the animals at this stage. And we say there about we say lipid and fats are also a category in the nutrients that we have. And I say there that they are part of the carbohydrates. And the difference now is in that for a normal, the other we have talked about the starches there and the fibers there, is that complete oxidation would yield 2.25 times more the energy than a normal carbohydrate per unit weight. So that means that if you are targeting that we want to increase the amount of energy in the feed, then the fats or the lipids now become more important. Then, as we know, plants are good sources of fat, of oil, while animal products contain the fat. And most plant seeds contain a small amount of the lipids. And then to further that is that some may contain as much as 20% lipids. And these the ones that we commonly see now in the feed is the cotton, the sunflower, and the soybean. And these ones, in terms of, as we'll see there, in terms of feed intake, they'll be better than the animal fats that would have. They'll be better included in the diet than the animal fats. I wouldn't want us to focus on the known and what would be the consequences of reduced. Let's talk about excesses. And the consequences of excessive amounts of energy. Number one, the cow would become too fat. And this has I said there previously, has an implication on the conception rate. So an animal that is too fat has low conception. These animals are also prone to difficult calving, issues of RAB, retained placenta, and also have higher incidences of milk fever and ketosis. So that tells us that we need to have animals that don't have that are not as fat. Then also, in early lactation, feeding too much energy, especially grain, may lead to rumen acidosis. And this would also lead to increased risk of displaced abomasum. I think the vets are much aware of that, are better placed to tell us that. Then you also have a depressed feed intake, and you also have low fat, milk fat percentage in the milk. There's one time for those farmers who take their milk to cooperatives, they know of the alcoholic gun, and then this has caused a lot of problems to farmers. I had one farmer one time who had issues now with acidity. Acidity would in a way affect what would say literally the passing or the failing of the alcohol test. So we don't need to have a lot of energy in the feed, so as to avoid now us being able to having our milk rejected out of many of the reasons that make the milk to be rejected. Probably are hygiene issues in terms of the animal itself, disease, then in terms of the environment around the animal, then also in terms of the equipment. Out of those, acidosis would have a huge implication there in that. Then the proteins, I know probably we have a lot to add with regard to that. Let's look at the proteins. And as we know, they are the principal constituent of all the body cells and tissues that we have in an animal. They are the major components of products such as milk and meat. So we eat the animal products because we want to get the protein out of them. So that explains that we need to provide them so that the animal can be able also to give. And this the third point there is that and we say protein is the most limiting nutrient in animal nutrition, and then such that if we have lack or reduced, would adversely affect the productivity. And remember, we are keeping this animal for the product that's going to give. Then you need to have a continuous supply throughout the life of the animal for growth. And as you say there, the significance of nutrition with disease recovery, the repair of tissues and organs, and also the other major functions that protein plays, and majorly there being production. Then the sources, I felt is important to be a bit literal here, and be able to let us see the sources that we have. And then the main sources are as indicated there. Number one now for the concentrates, you have the oil seeds and oil seed cakes. And these are residues after the oil is removed from the oil seeds. You can also have whole seeds, for example, of soya. I've not seen a case where we have the whole cotton. The ones that is mostly in the market is the whole soybean, which kind of is cracked. Or now, literally, what we see is a meal or sunflower milk cake. You realize here, the cakes here are just some presentation and involves, by the way, literally in the literature, it says cooking. And this cooking allows us to remove what we call the anti-nutritional factors that might be found in the seed. So this cooking quotes allows us to have a better feed material that can easily be utilized by the animal. Then you have products of animal origin, and examples here are fish meal, blood meal, meat and bone meal, the feather meal, and also byproducts from milk processing. And I think Yes, sana hiyo milk processing. I think the pig farmers have really benefited from the milk processors, because I know places there in Central where they are really getting this to feed to their pigs. But remember also here, because of the issue of mad cow disease, we don't encourage inclusion of this meat and bone meal in cattle feeds, because we don't want to have problems with regard to mad cow. Then also another important source is the herbaceous legumes, and these are the lucerns, the desmodiums, and the fodder trees. And then over highlight there of the fodder trees is that they would allow for lack of a better word, they would allow us, because you plant them around the fences, they would then serve many other functions apart from providing for nutrients for the animal. They would also serve for getting wood and also serving as fencing. But also remember, because of that aspect of nutritional factors, there are restrictions. You don't feed as much, avoid the animal having problems. Then you have the number 4 there is the NPN, and these ways we know that we say there that nutrition now is big chemistry now is much involved, and as we know is that proteins have the nitrogen. So if we can get other sources outside the other ones that have nitrogen, we can use them. And these were the examples here are, we have urea and poultry waste. But remember here there is a caution which we give to our farmers, is that urea is poisonous. If it is fed in quantities above the recommended one, and in some cases you see some say 1%, some literature talks of those that talk of in the case of a TMR 4%. What we must always advise our farmers is that urea is poisonous, and there are cases where a farmer uses it to be able to improve the palatability and the nutritive value of crop residues. Akiweka more than required, it's dangerous. Wengine wameamka asubuhi wanapata ng'ombe zote zimekufa. Then also poultry waste, and this poultry waste, as we know, has uric acid, and the uric acid, being acid, can lead to degradation of the teeth. Then also, if the poultry waste is not well processed, it can also expose the animal to diseases. We know poultry waste could have salmonella, so we would want to, with a lot of caution, to use both urea and poultry waste to avert many other problems that we have. Again, also, as we can see, in terms of the cost, because we say this is the most limiting nutrient, so this means consequently that's the most expensive. The plant, the better. If we are able to plant, the better for us. And this is where now we've seen when people are comparing, where Ugandans are able to give us cheap milk and eggs, and then the cottons and the seed cakes that we get are from their country. So we are able to produce them here in this country, we would have a reduction in the cost, and also availability and the quality would also be better. Then let's rush to the minerals. These are required in very small quantities, and for the animal to be able to function properly, they are broken into 2, macro and the micro. Macro are the major ones. They are required in large quantities. And these are the calcium, phosphorus, magnesium, potassium, sulfur, and sodium. Then micro, you have copper, cobalt, iron, zinc, selenium, and magnesium. Of importance now to us in terms of breeding, we know the importance that selenium and zinc plays in terms of heat, in terms of the whole breeding process. So they are very important. Some can be stored in the body. Example, there is iron that can be in the liver, and also calcium in the bones. And these were now, for example, a good thing now with regard to calcium We know how the body functions. The body functions with retention. When the moment the animal notices there is a certain deficiency of some sort, the animal is able to create body reserves. And this is where some people have argued that during the drying off period, you can try to stimulate the storing of body reserves, so that when the animal now calves down, it would have enough reserves to be able to sustain it during the lactation. Others are not stored in the body, and that means that we must apply them in the diet all the time. A good example there is the sodium and the potassium, and we know the role that sodium plays in terms of metabolism. Cell metabolism, you cannot do without sodium. So we need to make sure that we supply them to the diet, all the time. Some, if you give them in excess, can be very toxic. And examples there is the copper, the selenium, and the fluoride. We know what fluoride does to the teeth, so it can lead to degradation. And then this one, the toxicity now is mostly seen with trace elements. The macro ones is very rare to have toxicity, but with the trace elements is where you give excess above what is required, you can have issues with toxicity. Sorry. So how do we feed the minerals? I think this is where now the farmers have a lot of confusion on which is the best method to be able to provide. So we give you 3 methods: force feeding, and this is where is recommended for dairy cows. And then this is the way you do it is you mix in a ration. That is, you make a provision. Within the ration. I've also seen farmers who once they buy the dairy meal and the mineral leak, they mix together with the dairy meal, so that when they are giving the concentrate during milking, tayari imechanganywa hapo ndani na inaweza kupeana. Or even that, using what we would call the mixing now. When you're giving a hand, we say an animal requires about 100-120 grams, and a handful would be that amount. So when the farmer is milking, it provides that to the animal. This now would eliminate issues of palatability. The minerals are very dry, so the animals might not consume as well. But when you bind them in a way, that would increase the intake of the minerals by the animal. The next one is the free choice, where you provide now in a powder or in block form, then you place in a mineral box or you hang. I think ile tunaona sana is where we hang the mineral leak. It is hung somewhere where the animals leak as they take, and this is put at a strategic place. Not just you put it in a place where the animals can be able to really access it. Then avoid issues with regard to contamination, that the box should be lifted from the ground, and the animal are consuming the mineral ad libitum. I think a good example of this, a good application is a method we used to teach farmers, wakuku wa kienyeji, the cafeteria way, where you don't mix the materials, is you provide for them the way we do a buffet in a hotel, and the animal is able to pick as much. Ikisikia inataka ile mingi, inakula mingi. Ikisikia ingine haitaki, inakuwa, as opposed to mixing them. So this is where now you make sure that the animal has a free choice and is able to do that. Then top dressing is when now you have those animals that you do stall feeding, and you have individual animal. Then the powder is sprinkled on the chopped material, and then the animal is able to consume as it feeds. The only problem with this method is that the minerals may separate and settle at the bottom of the trough, and that means that the animal might not be able to consume. Because these are very dry, na chakula ile is just chopped. So the probability is that the animal might not be able to consume as much, and we know the implications. So that now tells us gives us the pros and the cons of each and every method there. The best one would be the force feeding, that you make sure that you put it in a way that the animal is kind of is forced to be able to really consume the minerals as provided. What would be the consequence of a deficiency? We said in cases of a surplus. A surplus in some cases for the trace minerals would be toxic. So if you give little or none, and this giving might be out of what you said there previously, that they might be there, but because of the palatability issues, the animal might not be able to consume them. So number one is you'll have issues to deal with fertility. And these were talked of the seleniums and the zincs. They have an implication on the heat signs and also low conception rate. I've always said that the animal doesn't talk, so the animal gives us signals. One of the signals with regard to breeding is a heat sign. So you have those silent animals that don't give us heat. Again, but also this should not be a justification, because with records, with proper record keeping, the farmer would be in a position to know the exact time that the animal is on heat and would require to be served. Then also there is issues of conception. They are not sufficient in the diet. You have low conception rates. And as you know here, there is a production will be affected. We know the amount of calcium that is in the milk. So if we have little in the diet, then we'll have the animal would not be in a position to give you now as much. Then you have now issues of bones. We say there minerals are involved in it. They are in several other body organs, and then so a poorly fed young animal would have poor developed bones and would have the intricate tissue. And you have health disorders. The most common one that even I think these were most of the people. There are some farmers who think some vets they play magic, milk fever, that once that injection is given, the animal recovers very fast and is able to continue. Then you have now, the animal would have very poor body condition, and this might be accompanied by a change in coat color. The color might look different in terms of the appearance. Then very fast on the vitamins. And we require in very tiny amounts, and they are involved, as we know, in many other body processes. And they are broken into two based on their solubility. There are those that are fat soluble, the A, D, and K, and you have the water soluble ones, which are the C and B complex. They are synthesized. Some can be synthesized by the rumen microbes, and can be stored in the or can be stored in the body, while others must be supplied. This is where we say the essential one, the essential vitamins here are the B, C, and K groups. The main sources are in the green vegetation and supplementation. And this is where we have now, in the feed industry, we have premixes. Each and every class of livestock has its own premix based on the nutritional requirements. I think with regards to the nutrients, I found it wise that we really look at, we marry the theory and the practical a bit to really be able to expose to remind us, to be able to remind us on the implications of us being able to provide them in the diet. Then let's look at feed evaluation. This, I think, is fundamental in terms of for us being able to really know and be able to kind of make a decision. Remember, we say there that the nutrition allows us to be able to make a decision. We cannot be able to make a decision unless we are able now to evaluate. So feed evaluation involves the assessing or the measuring the nutritional value of the feed. And this is kind of, in a way, is to query what nutrient is found in a certain feed material and how much of it is found in a certain amount of feed. And this now helps us broadly in allowing us to be able to meet the animal requirements. We have 3 methods that we use to be able to evaluate. The first one is the physical appraisal. And this is important in that I sympathize with farmers when they are saying that they are buying hay, and the hay they are buying is not real hay. And I think the basic principle is that the color in which the feed material was in the farm should be maintained as closely as possible. Sometimes you might not be able to really maintain it, but we should be as close as possible to the color that was in the farm. So we need to make sure that that color, if the green color, kama hay na ulizaga farmers, hay is from grass, for example, from Rhodes grass. The color of the hay Rhodes grass is green. Why then do we have brown hay? A question that we really need to make our farmers be able to do it right first, then also be able to interpret. Then also the smell. You don't want a feed that is smelling. Smelling might be an indicator that it is rotting or it is moldy. Then also we want to make sure that that feed material has no foreign materials. It doesn't have aina machuma, aina those other kind of dirt that might be injurious or harmful to the animal. Then you have now the chemical analysis that is now outside the purview of farmers. So only can be done at the laboratory environment, where you now do approximate analysis of the nitrogen-free extract, the protein, the fiber, the extract, the ash, and the moisture. And then also you can also do cell contents or cell wall contents. Then you also have the one we do, the NDF, and also the ADF. This is at the point, and I think this is where, as a country, we need to be investing, because we find that we really don't have enough information with regards to each and every feed material we have across the board, because of issues of how do we grow these ones, issues of soil composition. There will be differences, so we need to capture it, because if you don't have this one, then you will not be in a better position to be able to tell how much then would you be able to include in a specific diet. Then you have the third method there of the animal experiment, and this is where you give the animal an experimental diet, and over a given time during which you monitor the certain characteristics of parameters. I think in the feed industry, this becomes important in that mnyama ataongea. Ng'ombe, kama the feed is bad, ataongea in the terms of the productivity. If it is good, the animal would in a way also tell us the truth with regards to the quality of that feed that you're trying to make, and especially now in terms of feed formulation, in terms of TMR, this becomes important, because the animal is the key. The animal is the real objective, in that the way the animal is able to eat feed intake, digestion, utilization would have an implication on the production. So those are the 3 methods of feed evaluation. Then also important is in terms of now the digestibility. We have ensured that we have provided all the nutrients, we have evaluated them, and now the onus now is on the animal. So digestibility is a proportion of the feed which is not excreted and is therefore assumed to have been absorbed by the animals. And we want a feed or an animal that is able to give us out of a certain proportion of feed. It gives us less waste. The less the waste, the better the animal or the kind of feed stuff we talk about. It is expressed in terms of dry matter or in terms of specific food components such as protein or energy. Remember we said DM there. DM is the one that carries all the nutrients. So we can then not talk of the digestibility and talk of the whole feed material. We really must focus on the DM proposition of a certain feed. And that is the formula that we use. So we say it can be expressed as a coefficient or a fraction, and a fraction here also can mean a percentage. And as you can see there, what we are trying to do is we want to look at what is the ratio of what the animal took, what ilitoa, against now what the overall amount that we give the animal. And as you can see, we have general, and also we can specifically talk of crude protein digestibility. So what then would affect the digestibility of a certain digestibility of a certain feed? We have two main factors, that is animal and feed factors. So animal factors are the species, and we know ruminants are better feed converters than non-ruminants. So they are more efficient in digesting the high CF crude fiber we find in the feeds. Then also the age, and this out of the development of the GIT. A younger animal would not have a well-developed GIT as compared to a mature animal. Then also, this is where now probably would require to make a decision on culling. So at a certain age, especially with regard to the dental formula, when it deteriorates too much, then that animal might not be able to really utilize the nutrient. To digest, mastication would be affected by that. And also, as we know, and this is where now we, in some instances, we give provisions that allow a calf, for instance, be able to develop or increase the rumen microbes. Then also we have even additives that are able also to help us be able to improve, to be able to allow the flourishing of the rumen microbes, and such have an implication on the digestibility. And the health, as we said, some diseases may affect digestibility. And here, in terms of affecting the normal body functions, a sick animal will not be able to function normally. Then exercise or confinement. Exercise increases digestibility, while confinement reduces digestibility. This might not be as important in terms of we are now migrating into semi-zero or zero, but is a good scientific implication that animals that tend to exercise too much have been found to have a higher digestibility than those that are confined. Then you have the feed factors, and this now becomes important because now the farmer can be able now to make a decision on the feed is going to provide. Then also getting back to even animal-related factors is that we want to breed animals that have a high FCE, feed conversion efficiency. We want animals that are able to have a high digestibility. Then the feed quality is important in that less fibrous feeds would be digested more efficiently compared with the more fibrous ones. And this means that large pastures, that is young pastures, would be digested more efficiently compared with overgrown pasture. And this is where now farmers now must be able to know stage of harvesting. At what stage do we harvest to make sure that we don't have a lot of what we call lignin in the feed? The stage of harvesting becomes important. That's why it pains me when you go kienda mashamba kidogo, you find napier, it's overgrown, it's always like a bush, and you sympathize with the farmer, knowing that he would rather have, as we're going to see, conserve that one, instead of thinking that he's safe with such overgrown napier, that might not be of huge importance for feeding. Then also the quantity of the feed or the level of feeding. So underfed animals are more efficient than overfed animals. And these were now, again, as I said, try to look at those practical aspects of feeding that would be of literal application to the farmer. So you overfeed overfeeding results into an increased rate of food passage through the GIT. We want to make sure that the feed, before it is excreted, is able to maximally be able to pass through all the process of digestion, so that we can be able to squeeze more of the nutrients from a certain amount of feed to the animal. Then the form in which the feed is offered, again, also very practical. And as we know, chopping and grinding increases the feed intake. And this now has also the opposite of trying to increase the rate of passage through the GIT. But the increased feed intake, the increased FI would not be downplayed by the slight reduction in digestibility, because digestibility also is the amount of time. So if the amount of time reduces, that means we are losing certain nutrients. But this is also where I find maybe we have a technical here, probably we'll share later. Is I've never understood why farmers must grind hay with there is this machine inauzwa, not the normal fodder chopper ile ya kipanga. There is this kind of a hammer mill that is there, and you find that farmers are chopping, they are over chopping the hay such that inakuwa sasa ni kama ni vumbi. It becomes too powdery and very dusty to the animal, and that would interfere with the animal would be uncomfortable feeding. And also again now the as we've said there, the passage, the rate of flow would go up. Then continuation of the feed factors, supplementation. We know certain feeds can influence the digestibility of other feeds positively or negatively. And this is where we have if you do it review, you would find the calcium and phosphorus peaks, where that if you increase P, the increase in P somehow affects now the utilization of the calcium phosphorus. So that means now we must create a balance. We must be able to create a balance. And this concept is now the what we would call now the associated feed factor that would affect the utilization of the other. And a good one there is that with regard to supplementation is that addition of a protein-rich supplement to a low roughage would increase digestibility. And this is where I said a good example is where we have the mafefe, the masakari that are being for them to improve their palatability, to improve their nutrition, their nutrient value. We use the urea to improve it. So, and if you do that now, you will increase the protein that would be essential for microbial growth, and this now would again turn improve the degradation. As we know now, digestion is just degradation. We degrade it, we break it down to what to particles that the animal can be able to utilize. That is it with regards to digestibility, and I think also it's very practical that farmers can be able to really adopt each of them to be able to improve the amount of feed that can be digested and utilized. I find also this being important. I hope I'm still within time. You can see it's 12:10. I hope we still have room to finish. I think I'm almost finishing. So
Okay, you can finish, facilitator,
okay.
so that we can go for Q and answers, question and
Okay, please. In the next, let me rush it. Then you have now feed additives. And an additive is any substance that is added to the feed so as to improve or prevent deterioration. We want to make sure that we improve the nutritive value of the feed, or in a sense, be able to prevent the deterioration, that probably the loss or either loss of nutrients or the bacteria going bad. These are also materials that are the feed for other reasons apart from supplying nutrients. We can have those additives that we put in the feed, not for improving on nutrition, but for other reasons as we're going to find there. And these are general materials that are not generally regarded as food. They are put there to improve it in some way out of the nutritive value that we've so far talked about. They are different from supplements, that's good to mention. And they are put in the diet to enrich or to make it up for deficiencies of nutrients in a particular feed. So you might find that there are deficiencies, a certain feed doesn't have it. They are added to make sure that we improve it. And they may be we can get them from 3 sources, natural sources. Then you can also have them synthesized in the labs that they can mimic or chemically resemble those that are naturally occurring. And then you also have those synthetic compounds that do not occur in nature, that you can be able to make in the lab and make them available for use as additives. So why do we need to have additives? Kuelezea what we found in the last slide, to improve the keeping quality. We want to make sure that for planning purposes, you want a feed product that is able to have, in quotes, what we call the shelf life. So you want to have keeping quality, you want to improve the flavor, and as we know, flavor would affect the palatability. Then you'd also put them to aid in the processing or manufacturing of the feed. And they would also improve on the color, the texture, the stability. Then also some would be put there to improve the growth of the animals that are consuming that particular feed. Then also they are put there to improve the efficiency of feed utilization. And some also are put there for medication or for prophylaxis of disease. They are put there for us to be able to kind of try to assist the animal in terms of dealing with certain disease conditions. Examples of them, as you know, we have hormones. We will not focus more on that, the growth hormones and such. And you have some like for colorants, and a good example here is the one we use in poultry feeds, the one that we use to put the yellow color in the feed. And this is gotten from xanthophyll. We are trying to exploit the xanthophyll in the plant. So you make it, and it is added very small quantities. It is even yellow, by the way. You put it in the feed to be able to have the egg yolk. And this is where now is desirable to consumers. They would want to, for next and think kienyeji, ile mayai ya kienyeji inaonekana. Then you have now tranquilizers that are to calm the animal or make the animal to be less active. Then you have antioxidants. And this is now important now when you talked about fats and lipids, is that sometimes they become rancid. That is, they have unfavorable smell. So you have put now this one, the natural ones being the vitamin C and E, they are added to the feed to make sure that, sorry about that, to make sure that the feed doesn't have that a bad smell that would somehow affect how the animal is able to partake of the animal. Then you have buffers. Then you have now antibiotics. And I think now this one is where I think it's an area we need to make sure that we focus more, because we know the danger that antibiotics portend. So this is an area that the lesser the antibiotics, the better. If we are able to use little of them, the better. And this is because of the residue effect. that these antibiotics have in the products that we have. And then because we've seen farmers, even for as simple as a dewormer, very few farmers are practicing. They are practicing what we would call kutotumia those products. If it's told 2 days, 2 weeks not slaughter, 2 days of not using the product, very few farmers are doing that. I think that's a time bomb. But in the future, we might have bugs that we might not be able to deal with. As much as we are using them to eliminate or suppress certain pathogens, again, we must be very careful to their use. Then you have some that have chemotherapeutic use, and a good example, again, now getting back to the chicken, is the coccidiostat that we use in the feed of chicks to avoid issues of coccidiosis. Then some are preservatives that will make sure that the animal to reduce spoilage and increase the shelf life, the storage life that we have. Then, as we know now, we have now probiotics. I think this is an area that has several products outside there, and these are used for inhibiting the growth of other pathogenic microorganisms in the GIT, because we want to promote good bacteria in the rumen or in the GIT to make sure that we are able to improve on the digestibility. So we want to have them in the diet to be able to help us do that. And you have others that are rapid substitutes, emulsifiers, autoclaving agents, flavoring agents, humectants. And then you have also good example there of enzymes. I think the enzymes, we use them now to improve on the digestion. And a good example there is amylase. Then a good one there is where you, for example, we know in poultry, we know if you were to compare mash and pellets or crumbs, they have the crumbs or the pellets have low wastage, so they are better in a sense. So we need to add them. Some are added to the feed to allow us to be able to pellet that feed and present it in a manner that is there. In terms of now, there is a concept we used to teach extension in feed planning, that the farmer would have this animal for the whole year. And because we rely so much on grain-fed agriculture, we need now to make sure that to have the farmer in a position to provide what the animal requires all year through. And the only way to be able to do this is only through conservation. And when the main objective, I think, is conservation, is that we harvest the maximum of DM at an optimum stage. I'll give an example there of a grown Napier. So we were able to harvest that Napier and conserve it. We would be in a better position now to have harvested it at the best stage, yani wakati ambao inaweza saidia mnyama vizuri. Then also, because we require these pastures, it will also allow for the growth of the pasture. As we know, we have two methods. We have hay making and silage. So hay is for those dry material, and we harvest the right stage of harvesting, where in terms of not being overgrown, very, very, very low CF levels, and also nutritive value is at 50% flowering, and this has an implication on the digestibility. And the harvesting time must be, it is not wet. And as we advise, is that the drying of any cut feed material should be under shade. The sun messes up with the nutritive value, which is found in the green color. The greener the feed, the more nutritious it will be. Then also, to improve on the quality, we can mix grasses and legumes. Those of us who know the lucerne hay with lucerne is sold at a very high price, and also allows now the farmer to give what we would say nyama na ugali na nyama in terms of the hay mkulima anapea is a bit nutritious. Then baling is also important. You can do either manual or mechanized. Mechanized now in using the machinery, the balers. And you can also do manual, and manual here in terms of the hay box, and also we have the pit. Some farmers also use the pit to be able to do the hay. Then the storage now becomes important in that it must be stored in an enclosure free from sunlight and also drainage. It must be in an area where hakuna maji ama nini. Then also we know what rodents can mess, so we want to put in a place where they cannot reach the nini. Then this I think is a take home for farmers, that good quality hay should be leafy and greenish in color. That is to mean, and good drying allows that you don't lose the leaves. The leaf, as we know, is the most nutritious part of the plant. So if we are able to dry in a manner that doesn't lose us the leaves, then that means itakuwa more nutritious. It should have no foreign material, and should not be smelly. Then silage is the opposite now of the haymaking. It is for those high moisture for the crops, and we sorry about that. And we tunatumia now the principle of fermentation, and this is the anaerobic fermentation. So which crop now would be good for the hay? Should contain adequate level of fermentable sugars, should have a DM content of above 20%, should have a physical structure that would allow it to be compacted. You don't want to have a feed material that you cannot be able to compact. And you know, compacting gets rid of the air, and that then helps us to be able to do anaerobic fermentation. Then it can be either from fodder sorghum, the oats, the maize, and also the napier grass. We can have some additives. Some additives can be put there to enrich the silage, and some of them can be stimulants, fermentation stimulants. This would be either bacteria or enzymes that would improve the fermentation process. And you also have some substrates that would add to the energy input of the energy or protein input of the feed. And this would be the most common one we use is the molasses. Then also how you do it, it can be done either in a plastic sacks or tubes. These are the most common because of the issues of the small scale farmers we have. Then you have pits that can be dug into the ground, or you can have those above ground silos that can be made on slightly sloping ground. What should be important is that put them in a way that drainage can overflow. Any overflow of water can really mess up the material. Must be put in an area that is able to, hakuna maji inaingia ama maji inaweza kuondolewa vizuri. The silage again, how should it be? Should be bright or light yellow in color. Should have a smell similar to vinegar and a firm texture. Yani inakaa kama ni kama pombe kidogo tu. So if it is any other smell, then that shows it could be rotten or it could be bad. And as you can see there, is that bad silage would in a way smell like ammonia. Then one of the properties of milk is that the milk is a big absorber of any foreign smell. So to avoid that, because meat, as we say, silage is going to have a slight of a smell. To avoid the off flavors in the milk, the silage should be fed after milking, or at least 2 hours before milking. That will make sure that the flavor we have in the milk haitaweza kuweko. Then lastly, ration formulation. I find this important because now we've come from the stages where we have seen which are the nutrients, where they are. Now we talk about now how we formulate. And the ration, as we know, is a feed for a day, 24 hours. And this formulation, therefore, is a process of designing a diet based upon available ingredients. And as we are going to see next, this word available now means we use what is available. Because if it is not available and you go look for it, that means there is a cost component. So why we need to formulate is we want to reduce the cost of the feed. Because again, we say there we are coming from the point of we want to supply all the nutrients the animal requires. When we are formulating, we want to look at all the sources, for example, of protein. We look at all of them, then try to look at which is the cheapest. Then we want to maximize on the quality. We want to make sure that we have quality, the highest quality we can get. And also we want to improve on production. And the bottom line now is we want to increase on the returns. So what are the factors that we need to really put in our mind? We want to really think about the acceptability. Will the feed be palatable to the animal to ensure that the animal is able to partake in? Kama haitakula, then the formula in quotes will be worthless. We also want to focus on digestibility. We want to make sure that the ration we create is able to be digested and utilized by the animal. Then we also want to, most important there is the cost, what we call in formulation, the least cost combination. I think is where for us, for those of us who have worked in food factory, I normally tell people there is no standard formulation. Mtu anakuambia nipatie formula ya dairy milk. Doesn't exist. What exists is we want to have a least cost combination. What can be available there, but also good quality is what we want to veneer that through. Then we also want to avoid anti-nutritional factors. And this is what I said in terms of the cooking the cakes. The cooking of the cakes, we in some ways allows us to be able to reduce nutritional factors. Then also remember, as we've said, we have toxic nutrients, toxic feed materials. We should make sure that we avoid putting them in the feed. And the methods, as we know, we have the trial and error, where you're trying to substitute ingredients at different levels, and these are like playing around with the nutrients that you have, and it was substitution. You had the sunflower, you substitute with cotton, and this now it's tedious. It's going to take a lot of time to be able to get a least cost ration that you can use. Then you have now the digital age has come, where now we have computers. We have several computer software that are available for you to be able to do formulation. But the caveat here is that because they are fed with nutritive value of the feedstuff, when we are not able to ascertain the nutritional value of the feedstuffs that we have, we can have a very good formula, but because hatuja ascertain the literal composition of those nutrients, that would lead to a certain problem. The softwares are there and they are really helping in terms of making sure that they are fast, they are efficient, and then they are able to they inapunguza the amount of work that you do to be able to create that ratio. Then the normal one ile tunajua Pearson square method, which we know is we are trying to get the ratio. We try to get the ratio of each of the feeds, the feed stuff that we have, give us a proportion of each in the diet. And lastly, that shows us what now formulation would entail in terms of helping us be able to get a good product. So the ingredients must be readily available, they must be cost effective, they must have very good nutritional composition. Then you must have specifications. And the beauty now of having now software is able to really ease the burden of you being able to really calculate how much. Because as we say, you feed as per a class, or within a class, sorry, a physiological state. You cannot feed the same feed to a calf and a lactating animal. So you need to have the nutritional levels that's required for each particular animal, for each stage. Then you also have the limits that you cannot put beyond certain limits in a certain population. And you now formulate the feed. Then you have now the results. Before now you even feed, you need now to kind of question now. That is now you analyze and the formula is how would that formula affect, how would it affect production? Is it a plus or minus? Then also in terms of feeding to the animal, then also quality analysis also becomes in such. So I think I'll stop there. I said there previously, this is like looking for a needle in a haystack. So I hope we've covered part of it, but in case we feel we need to re-tackle, because I feel the best aspect in terms of teaching would be feeds and feeding, because that's where now we have a lot of issues there. We would want to expose in a manner that we are able to know which are these feedstuffs, which are looking at them, and also in what form that we can be able to feed them. Then also we should not also forget that we are promoting on-farm feed formulation, and also because we're also talking of cooperatives, that we also need to let our farmers now be able even to go into commercial feed production. I think with that, I can end it there, and I can open it up for questions. I'm sorry to rush in the second bit of it, but I think it's always good to be time conscious. Thank you all for your time. Maswali sasa ikuje.
Okay, thank you so much, our facilitator. I know when we talk of nutrition, it's a bit complex area of study, and it is very important for economical production of our daily production in livestock. Actually, because time has much gone, maybe we'll just first go through the questions and answers. And there's one question here I'd like to read. That's an anonymous attendee. I would wish to elaborate the relationship of additional dairy meal and additional milk produced and the formula of calculating dairy meal required by dairy meal. Maybe our facilitator, Kibe, kindly answer that so that we go to the next very fast.
So the relationship between additional dairy meal, there is what we call, there is challenge feeding. Probably, yes. I think he's thinking in the terms of challenge feeding. So, and then I wish we had time would have even shown it here, that sometimes the more, if the animal gives you, if you give a certain amount of feed and it is able to give you more, and you challenge it, you continue adding the amount of concentrate you give to make sure that you maximally are able to get much out of that. Then I have said there is no standard formula for any, probably for dairy meal. Maybe the one I would give is that the ratio of protein, the ratio of protein to carbohydrate is 2:1. So you put a third in a ration or in a formula. A third is protein, then 2/3 is for the energy bit.
Okay, thank you for that answer. I think the viewer will be able to get it right and be able to manage his production. And maybe I can add something on that. Actually, because I think majorly when we are formulating a concentrate, we normally think of protein, and our farmers need to understand that. Actually, because you find some farmers are giving dairy meat, they are feeding the animals without the standard, because we normally tell our farmers the more the milk is being produced, there's different, and I think John was able to go through the requirements, the factors that actually factor the requirements of an animal. So it also will depend on the production of milk, and we understand that there are we have two proteins, crude proteins. That's the rumen degradable nitrogen and the one which is non-degradable. At the end of it, the amino acids actually is required to contribute to be concentrated in different levels, whereby an animal intake actually will just check on the energy supply all the way to production and maintenance. Thank you. Maybe you can go to a second question.
I think that's an observation, and I think that's a fair one. And the other one is I talked about this John Nyamai, the feed intake. What this one we said is that this is the amount of water kulinganisha na the amount of feed. For example, if you give 100 grams of compounded feed, you provide double that for the amount of water. This at least for planning purposes. Then we also remember, we say when you're providing water, for example, in a house, for the ratio of waterers and feeders is 2:1. So you provide for every one feeder, you provide 2 waterers. Then the other one, which is the other question there?
Okay.
Someone is on hormones. Someone is asking what hormones are found in the market and which you can use. I think part of the problem for us as a country is that we've said in this forum that we have so much believed in what is coming, and then we have not been in a position to control ni nini inakuja. Then also remember, there are ethical questions with regards to some of these growth hormones. There's tropins that there are ethical issues surrounding their usage. So in the market, there is many, but the reason why we don't find them so much is that hatujafika to a level of commercialization that itatufikisha kufanya full specialization. The only bit nimeona juzi watu wanasema ni when with terms of especially broilers. There are even claims watu wanadunga some of those hormones in a bad way, and they might have an effect. I think that's a very gray area in terms of standards and also in terms of availability and such in the market.
Okay, thank you for that answer. There's another question from Dr. Viola Chemis. Never seen feeder meal in the market.
So I say there is a good observation. It's very rare. It's also very rare to find, and also would be very expensive because you can tengeneza could be an issue. But remember also we are using international standards. And also again, remember here talking of least cost combination. If we are able to find, to manufacture or produce any feed material or raw material cheaply, the better for us. But we find now mara mingi hatujafikia that level in a good way.
Another, kindly clarify on the feed intake for poultry as indicated to be a ratio 2:1.
That one I answered, you nimejibu.
Okay. Are there any negative effects should we result from feeding lactating dairy cattle or sunflower seed as a source of protein?
For oil seeds, remember the bottom line is about the antinutritional factors. And also again, the best way of using resources, the best way of using, remember it's good to say here that some of these feedstuffs you're feeding the animals are also, we can be somehow being said we are in competition with animals, with people. So between animals and people, who should come first? That's why we say we give now the byproducts. We give the residues of the byproducts. If you are able to utilize the sunflower to me now as a byproduct, tutakuwa in a better position. But I think the issue here would be now with regards to digestibility. I think the whole meal, as much as it is good, would not be as better digestible than now the byproduct.
Okay, there's another question, but I think Viola, she missed for another seminar. She's requesting if you can freely avail software like Rumen 8. I think that's a software. Another
Yes,
question,
yes.
chopping versus crushing of feed, especially Napier. Which one is better?
You know, we've said now, we know what we need to provide to the animal is we need to increase the surface area to the action of microorganisms in the stomach. So chopping allows us to do that. But again, remember, we've said if it is crushed too much, for example, I don't know, maybe he is also reading from the same line I have. Yeah. Kuna hizi machine choppers they are selling to farmers that have zenye ziko na kichungi. So when the food is too powdery, in quotes, when it is too powdery, that means iko vumbi ni mingi. And you've gone into some farms, unasikia ng'ombe inakula kikohoa. By the way, the general rule is that for us to be able to increase an animal productivity, we also improve on the comfort. So if that animal inakula sasa inaona now that it is too dusty in a way, then that means haitaweza kukula vizuri. So that would kind of affect. So I think with normal chopping, and I think I would advise ile chopper ya kipanga, na zile za zamani za kipanga, as opposed to this other one that have like can refer to them as a hammer mill. I would prefer mtu afanye chopping na ile ingine ambayo sasa haikati sana, at least it is allowing the animal room to be able to chew and also reduce a bit of the ile tulisema bypassing the GIT.
Yeah. I think we've answered that of hormones. In case of ketosis due to overconditioning, how do you counter supply the carbohydrates in the feeds? Encounter.
I think you know, we say the rule of thumb is that you must be very careful with grains, including grains to ruminants. We know the danger grains can cause. Because the term, they are very palatable. The animal tends to overfeed. So I think it's in a matter of trying to look at to balance. You know, that's the beauty now of ration formulation. You're trying to really look at and appreciate the diversity of the nutrients, the diversity of the feedstuffs, and their nutritive value, as opposed to just formulating for the sake.
Thank you. And maybe some question to that. You find our farmers have feeding our animals, and especially the mauzo. We call it mauzo. The one, the maize that actually has done the color instead of. Maybe you can shed some light on that.
I think I talked about competition. Yes. But we also must now let our farmers be able to know. The other day there was an outcry of aflatoxin. You know the dangers of aflatoxin. I've seen. We lost a colleague I know somewhere from around the Rift Valley, and attributing it me, I think that cancer would have come out of the use of poor grains. I think we must, and this is where sometimes I feel for us to be able even to control, hatutazuia sana farmers kujitengenezea chakula at their farm. But I think for us to be able to take on the quality and the standards, there must be a bit of limitation. Kwa sasa mkulima anafikiria that huyu ng'ombe, because ng'ombe ni mnyama tu, that ndiye akule ile mahindi imeoza, ile chakula zimeoza. I think that's a wrong way. That's a long approach. And I think our farmers are not in a manner that they desist in giving that muscle. Then also, again, remember here we've said the quality of the feed. The moment that food is rotten, it can harbor microorganisms that would make the animal sick. Number two, the quality would not be as good. The quality haitakuwa ina maana ambayo. Then also, I normally tell farmers, kama huna mtu your relative mwenye anaishi town, in town we don't know where the products we consume are coming from. Let our farmers be in a position to be somehow responsible. I even tell them when I go to train them in the field, I like when we are training in church halls. Because now in church, we want to be very holy inside that building. So the same way we would have to be ethical, we need to be honest, we need to make sure that the products we produce are in a manner and in a condition that we can say is healthy. So I think that's a call to all farmers out there, that the animal haihitaji maozo, the animal requires good quality feed that be there. Then again also is to avoid now that competition, is now we are able to do like the fodder sorghums, we do some very good napier that would somehow avoid a situation where you are competing with humans for especially maize and grains as such.
Okay, thank you for that enlightening. Actually, in a layman's language, I can say, farmers, let's give our animals what we can ourselves consume, so that we ensure that our safety. Maybe to the next question, Rogers, I would like a presentation via email. Yes, Rogers, you'll get that information through your email. For the sake of clarification, you say that the cakes are literally cooked. What of the meals? Do I have to crack soybeans and cook before feeding?
Not really anyway. I was trying to reasonably explain what happens in terms of, the main aspect there, I'm repeating again, is we are trying to deal with anti-nutritional factors that are found in these seeds. So, and in the factory there is kind of cooking now, meaning here we are passing through heat to make sure that we eliminate some of them. But also remember, it is done in a manner, we know what heat does to protein. You heat too much to nutrients in general. Too much heat destroys the nutrients. So it's heated in a manner that we get rid of the anti-nutritional factors and then are able now to get a good product out of that.
Okay, if I may go to Mata Chaglagat, she's asking, what should calcium be introduced to a cow after calving?
I think in terms of calcium, what we need to do is we are replacing. We know milk contains a lot of calcium. So we must be replacing as much as it is losing through milk, then we must be replacing.
Thank you. And I think we've answered our questions. We're almost done with our sessions, guys. And we really thank our facilitator for covering all essential part of nutrition, especially when we are talking of water. Why is it important? We've been told it is important for viscosity. And what happens when our cows are derived to water? We've learned about essential and non-essential nutrients, food efficiency, all that. And I think we'll be able to conceptualize it and take our information back and do it practically at home. Before we end our session, maybe I'll welcome Paris to make some few remarks then because of our time. Thank you so much, our facilitator. You've really given us a very big, and I wish we had time. And I think next time we'll be having we can narrow down to different requirements in different production or level of productions.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, everyone, and wish you well, especially during these hard times. God bless you all. And I think it's only in extension where you have, we say in extension, the flow of information is two-way. So we agree, we accept criticism, tunakubali, hata kuelimishwa, because the flow of information is two-way. So the feedback is important, and we thank KAGRC and KLBA for such an opportunity. So I wish you well, and see you next time.
Thank you, thank you. Paris, kindly make your remarks.
Thank you, Regina, for facilitating the session. Thank you also, Mr. John Kibe, for a very comprehensive presentation. Actually, from the feedback from our participants, you can see that many of them are saying they have benefited from the presentation. I think this was quite an informative session. I'd also like to acknowledge the presence of Leonard Mukebi from KLBA. I think he wasn't there when we were introducing ourselves at the beginning. And also Miriam Thuo, I think I saw she joined. Mary Kaigi and Stephen Juma, please, we acknowledge your presence. Thank you so much for joining us. I don't know whether we have anybody from KVB. If you are there, please, if you can just greet the participants. Do you have anybody from KVB? Okay, I think we don't have anybody today, but they are aware that this session was on today for the sake of the CPD points. And then maybe to just inform our participants that this webinar series will be running for the next 8 weeks up to February next year, every Tuesdays from 10:30 to noon. So we encourage you to let your friends and colleagues know about this so that they can join us, so that we are all trained together. Again, maybe to just also mention that KAGRC will be launching the Dairy Goat Center in Kirinyaga soon. And if you have any queries regarding dairy goats, you are encouraged to send in your queries, suggestions, so that they can be handled in the next webinar series. We will be having a webinar series on dairy goats industry in Kenya. That will be done in December 14. So in preparation for that, kindly just send in your suggestions, your queries, so that the person who will be facilitating will be able to cover all the areas that would like to be informed on. Otherwise, from me, I think just to say thank you so much, and to say that this webinar is officially over, and we can now leave. Regina, is there anything you want to add?
No, I'd just like to thank the team for the good job well done, and always welcome and feel at home. This is a place where we can all inform. As John said, the information is to and fro. So we welcome more information, questions and answers, critics, and also we take everything. Thank you so much for taking us through, and thank you. Welcome next time.
Thank you so much.
Unless Chabed, do you have any?
Yes, please. Thank you again, everyone who took time to join in this webinar. For all the people who have sent in the email addresses, I'll be sure to send you the notes. Also, if you have any queries or if you want the presentation, the whole video recording sent to you, kindly get in touch with me. I've sent my email address and my number on the chat feature. And also we'll see you next Tuesday at 10:30 p.m. for a webinar on economic importance of mastitis in a dairy cattle enterprise. Thank you very much.
If we may leave at our own time. Unless we have anything from the KVB. Anybody from KVB? If you don't have, you have less. Sorry.